I hope you'll enjoy this project because it's one of my favourite bangles to make. And I suppose it's because I use my whammer hammer for it. You can see it's sort of compressed wires. You wrap the wires and compress them, and then you can wire wrap these little beautiful micro-faceted beads that I've got from Charmer's Gems here. So it's a good way of using up these micro-faceted pieces, or you can use bigger gemstones, obviously. You need a mandrel, and you need a steel mandrel, and you need a hammer. I'm using 0.4 for binding the beads on, but the main body of the bangle is 0.8 millimeter wire, so it could be 20 gauge. You can use thicker, but this will work. So you start by wrapping the wire, you're working directly from the spool, around your metal mandrel. And you want that to be smaller than the actual bangle diameter. And then you cut off from the spool, leaving a nice long tail, so nice long end. And you see, it sort of just fits, but it shouldn't be the perfect fit because it will stretch when you hammer it. So now take the last sort of cut end, the short bit, and just use that to wrap around all those coils that you've already made around the mandrel, just to hold those circles in place. Don't worry too much about shaping at this point. And now the long tail, just wrap and wrap and wrap. Don't leave big gaps, just, randomly wrap tightly around the other coils, keeping them all together. By the way, this works also for a ring, so you can sort of scale it down, and you might have seen this as another tutorial on my YouTube for a ring. So just keep going until you've used up all the wire, and if you haven't cut enough wire, you just have to cut another length and start again wrapping round. So it's very random, doesn't have to be beautifully wire wrapped, it's just got to be held together in place. So there you have it, it's all wrapped around. And now you're going to start the next bit that I love the most, which is the hammering. So you put it on your steel mandrel, get your planishing hammer or your whammer hammer with the planishing end, the steel end, and you want to turn the bangle around the mandrel and just hammer it flat down onto the mandrel, which will fuse it and compress all the wires together, like you can see here. And it does give you a few little gaps within the wrap, which is very useful when you're coming to add beads on. You see, it's a finished bangle just like that, so you can make stacking bangles just plain like that. But now we're going to use some of these beautiful micro-faceted gemstone beads, which are tiny, by the way. I find them quite hard to pick up with my wire, but I've got 2mm sizes and a 3mm size. So I'm just getting a few assorted colours just to show you how I would, spread them around the bangle to add a little bit of colour rather than just having a plain silver bangle. So I cut a long length of 0.4mm 26 gauge wire, and I've just found a little gap I can thread it through, and then I'm just going to secure it around the bangle, and then I begin by feeding a couple of my beads on. So if you can find the holes, that is. So yeah, use your glasses if you need them for this, because the beads are so small. So feed a few or thread a few beads on, and then place them against the bangle side or the wire side and hold them there. In fact, 2 will probably be enough for this one, so I'll take the other one off. And then wire wrap them in place so that they sit on the top of the bangle. And then you can use any gaps that you find within the bangle to thread the wire through, which gives it a bit more security and its sort of stability as well when you're wire wrapping. And then leave a little gap and then bring the wire back through and adds a few more beads. So you just carry on around the whole diameter or perimeter of the bangle, adding little beads as you go. And of course, the bangle width that I'm showing you, you saw how much wire I used. It wasn't that much. But if you wanted something much, much thicker, you know, a chunkier bangle, you can use a thicker gauge wire, and you can use much more wire. And that means you get, you know, a much chunkier length. I like these thin bangles because you can make 2 or 3 and stack them up on your wrist, and you know, you get that sort of nice look of 2 or 3 together, maybe with different colored beads, or maybe some plain and some with beads. So there's so many options. Here's a previous one I made with the carnelian micro-faceted. So just continue all the way round, adding the beads and threading them on, securing them to the outside, and that's all there is to it. So I hope you have enjoyed this particular tutorial and can make your own versions.